Hello and welcome back to the Erin Cruz Show. We have on with us a return guest. Yes, Joshua Scott. He ran for the 32nd Congressional District in the state of California. We are so excited to have you back on the show, Scott.
Thanks for
Mr.
having me
Scott.
back. I'm stoked to be here with you.
Is it Josh or Joshua? I mean, we like to be personal. I always call you Joshua.
You know what? When I was growing up, all my friends called me Josh. But once I entered the professional political arena, I feel like Josh was a little more professional. It's biblical, so I think it's a good way to go from here on out. But you can call me whatever you like.
Fabulous, Mr. Scott. No, I'm just kidding.
There we go.
Well, I mean, you just finished out a strong run for United States Congress. You're one of the youngest, right?
I was the youngest, actually.
Yes, even younger than Morgan Murtaugh?
Right? Yeah, she was the youngest for a while, and then since I kind of threw my hat into the ring,
female.
Yes, exactly. And she did really well. I mean, we had some really strong young conservatives putting it out there, and I'm really proud that we were able to kind of start that movement going. We obviously have a lot of work to do, but there was a few of us out there, and I'm really proud of it.
It was wonderful. That's wonderful. I mean, you ran. You decided to go for it. Feet to the pavement. How did things turn out? Because a lot of people are frustrated, especially with the state of California in particular. We gained the Senate, right? I mean, in terms of what we've done historically speaking, we've gained in the Senate. We lost some House seats, but we didn't lose as many as presidents historically have lost in the past. I would look at that as a win-win-win-win-win all the way around. But in the state of California, we had some hard hits. How is your district doing? I mean, is there voter fraud? I mean, what's going on there?
Yeah, it was definitely tough for us here in Southern California on election night. Sitting there watching the news and seeing all of the results come in nationwide, I have to say I was pretty proud of our party, and I wrote about it on social media because it was definitely a pretty historic night. But at the same time, us here in Southern California, we definitely took it on the chin. We lost quite a few seats. But over in the 32nd District, my campaign, I am incredibly proud of what we were able to accomplish in such a short amount of time.
Right.
For those who don't know, we didn't start our campaign until about 3 weeks before the primary with the motive of providing the people with a choice because the incumbent Democrat was running unopposed, and we said absolutely no way can we let that happen in such an important election. So we got after it. We got on the ballot after being a write-in candidate, and the 4-month campaign from July through November was absolutely incredible. I was able to touch so many people in such a short amount of time. People were inspired that a Republican decided to step up in a region where there hasn't been much Republican success for a while. So over those few months, we literally sprinted all day, every day, touched as many people as possible. Didn't really matter what your political ideology was. I wasn't only knocking on Republican registered houses. I was hitting every house, calling every voter, and talking to everyone in the street. And it was pretty awesome because so many people, the partisan politics aside, you say, hey, I'm here running to provide you with a choice. I believe in our democracy. I believe in our country. I'm the youngest guy out here doing it. And we really got a positive reception. And I really do believe it's something that we're going to build off of. And we haven't wasted any time. I mean, November 7th, I was back in my office talking to people and working on our next project. So I'm really excited for the future, even though, obviously things didn't work out so well for our party. I'm still driven, and I plan on being a leader for the time being and for the foreseeable future.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So it sounds like you have plans. You're not going to really reveal those plans because they're in the works right now currently.
Yeah, the election hasn't even been certified yet, so right. I kind of want to just sit back, enjoy a couple weeks off, and talk to family. Thanksgiving break was really nice, because the couple weeks after the election, we were still kind of running around, took some time to chill out a little bit, and now right. We can kind of see where things are certified, where things finalize, and then move from there.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, we can't wait to have you back on the show and pick your brain and see what you're up to.
Of course.
But I really didn't get a sense you hitting on the voter fraud. Is there voter fraud in your area, or is this something that's just a pie in the sky, conspiracy? theory. What is going on in that area where you're at? Did you
Right.
see
So
any issue?
it's definitely something that, when you bring it up, whether you're on national news, local news, social media, every time someone brings it up, you kind of goes back to, oh, you're just being a typical Republican conspiracy theorist because we're the ones that are always claiming voter fraud. And you see some pretty strong examples over in Florida and Arizona with some sketchy things going on. But to keep it just local in Southern California, I didn't want to be one of those guys saying, oh, I lost because of massive voter fraud. Obviously, that's not something a candidate wants to do just after a fresh loss. So I did some looking into it. And there really are some troubling statistics. Here in District 32, there's about 321,000 registered voters. And in the 2014 primary election, a Republican candidate, Arda Loss, did very well. Our district is only 21.5% registered Republican, and he finished with 40% of the vote against Grace
Wow.
Napolitano. And in that election, that was the last midterm election that we had, and she got 50,353 votes. I'm looking at it right now.
50,000?
And 50,353, which
And
is a
before she
relatively,
had gotten,
that was in 2014.
okay.
And here in the 2018 midterm election, I'm looking at it right now, she got 119,531 votes. And they're still counting, I presume, over the last, they still have another week to do it at the registrar. And that's an incredible jump. I mean, obviously, people were talking about how Democrats were mobilized, they don't like Trump, there's a blue wave coming, blah, blah, blah. But here's my issue with that. In District 32, we are on the map. We're mostly a part of the 48th Assembly District.
Right.
And the 48th Assembly District was, the Democrat candidate was Blanca Rubio. She's an incumbent. And there was no Republican running against her. She did not campaign for a total of 2 minutes. She did absolutely nothing. And my opponent, Congresswoman Grace Napolitano, the Democrat incumbent, she did absolutely nothing. There was no signs, there was no rallies, there was no door knocking, there was no phone calls. There was no real sense of urgency among the Democrats in the district. Most of the political signs that I saw around were, school board and other local elections, which is great. But I really didn't see any urgency among the Democrats campaigning-wise. Obviously, they didn't need to.
Spending.
Exactly. So they just kind of chilled. One of them ran unopposed. I came in at the last minute. So obviously, they didn't think they had to do much. And she gets more than 2 times what she got in 2014. I don't know. It's just something that I've been kind of analyzing and looking at. And you can...
Well, something to be aware of.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
and then I've also read that in Orange County, where they flipped, 5 or 6 districts to where the entire county is now blue, but John Cox, the Republican candidate for governor, got like 200,000 or 300,000 more votes in the county, and the congressional candidates got absolutely wiped out. So those are just some examples. Those are some things we talk about at the dinner table at my house, like, hey, what's really going on out there? Now, those are the only specific examples and theories that I have. I'm not going to go out there throwing conspiracy theories.
Well, I will. What I'll tell you is, figures don't lie, but liars can figure.
Yeah, so from one midterm election to another, 119,000 to 50,000. I don't know.
I mean, there are a lot of questions.
Lots of questions.
There are a lot of questions, and one of the things, I ran for U.S. Senate, and I was looking at this very specifically because Dianne Feinstein's and the Senate seat is a statewide seat, right? And in fact, LA County is considered to be one of the most corrupt counties. It is the largest county in the United States in terms of vote, populace, what have you. She won with over 70% in the primary. So did Maxine Waters. So did Adam Schiff. Okay, so while these people are winning by 70%, 70% large margin wins, and no campaigning.
Correct. So they're expanding their numbers from previous elections.
No signs. Name recognition from poor performance, dissatisfied populace. Only a couple people mentioned they actually liked Dianne Feinstein during my campaign. But the one interesting thing I found when I looked at the numbers, because again, numbers don't lie. But we have a lot of liars in our system, and that's what I have a problem with, is the corruption. when you look at the midterm and you look at prior midterms and you look at undervotes versus overvotes, okay, because you have undervotes and overvotes, during the midterm election versus the presidential election and the patterns of undervotes versus overvotes in the midterm primary versus the general election, there's a big difference in these numbers, and nobody's asking why. People know they can only vote for one person. It says right on there, and in fact, there are a lot of different reasons why there might be undervotes or overvotes, right? But the numbers are really, really glaring, and nobody is looking at them and saying, what's the problem here? And Democrats, I mean, I don't want to talk Democrat or Republican here or the other, there or the other. Elections should be honest. They should be honest. And it doesn't matter who you are, you should want to know that your vote counts, your vote matters, and that our process is solid. Because no matter whatever's happening on one side can sure as heck tip and go to the other. I mean, it can go full circle. These things can impact all of us. They do impact all of us. But those numbers don't add. They don't fly with me. And I have a problem with all the people in office who are doing nothing about them and asking the questions or making solutions. So we're going to be working on that over the next 4 years. But to talk to your point about conspiracy theories, I don't believe the people are going off of like this conspiracy theory. Oh, it's election fraud. Oh, you know, people have experienced a huge disservice in terms of the elections. In a primary, over 100,000 people were dropped off of the voter rolls in LA County. That's enough to make anybody, doesn't matter your party affiliation, concerned about the integrity of our elections and the accuracy and the validity of your vote. You know, and that is a concern. Just making sure it's right, correct and proper. Whoever wins fair and solid, great. That's what the people wanted. But again, you know, we don't want to go pie in the sky conspiracy theory, but the people have felt it. It's been real for them here in California, and they've watched some disconcerting things. Like you saw this ring of petition persons going around and gathering different kinds of fraudulent signatures and other things. I mean, there's a lot of shicey things happening. There need to be repercussions. As to your
can I add to that?
Yeah.
You know, one thing, especially here in California, that kind of takes away from our election integrity are the biases in the media and within the establishment where all the money is. Because Mark Moyser, our candidate for Secretary of State here in California, I've never met anyone that was more of an expert on election law and the election process. Mm-hmm. And when that guy talks to you about how our election system works and the flaws that are in it, that guy is presenting to you some real logical facts. And throughout his campaign, he talked to so many Republicans, Democrats, whoever you are, and just kind of explained to them the facts of how things are and what he will do when he's elected to fix them. But it's just such a shame that here in California, you know, obviously the media and the establishment, they're not going to give him the time of day. And since there's not a lot of resources here in California for Republicans to you know, expand and touch millions of voters, he wasn't able to get his word out to enough people to win an election. And it's just such a shame, because I don't know if I've met a better candidate during this election cycle that would have been better at his job. You know what I mean?
Right. No, I agree. And he came across as neutral about honest and fair elections. And it doesn't matter who you are, your vote should count, and it should be accounted for. And the integrity of our system is vital. Otherwise, people won't participate, and then we'll just be like every other nation here on the globe, which is corrupt. I say maybe we, you know, and I'm talking now just in conversation, some things need to change. And in the media, and where the media are concerned, they have freedom of the press, right? But when Joe Schmo, who's in the Secretary of State position, talks about something, he gets free press for the Secretary of State position. He's an elected official. What about if he's running for re-election and is now also a candidate? And
Yeah,
what
it's
about if
tough.
he's on the TV and he's getting free press being in that position and he's also a candidate? Why can't the opposing candidates have the same amount of allotted time that they're supposed to have and offer up solutions for that same position? Media is not serving the people by encouraging information for the people. That
Right.
needs to
It's
change.
it is a huge shame, especially here in our state. Like you said, it doesn't really matter what your party is. It just matters that things are free and fair,
Right.
and they really are the farthest thing from it right now. And
Right.
that's why I got involved at such a young age. You know, if things weren't so dire right now, I would have been one of those people that sits on their couch, screams at the news, and then just deals with whoever gets elected.
No, no,
But
no,
like
no,
you,
no, no,
people
no.
like you and I see that things really are. That's how the situation is right now. It's tough, and we have to fight for our freedoms because they're slowly and surely being removed out of our lives, especially in the electoral system. And that's why, as a young person, I want to step up now, be a leader, and hopefully
That's
reform our
wonderful.
system and have things, go through with integrity in the future.
That is wonderful. And we thank you for stepping up. It takes people like you who are brave and willing to put their lives on hold, literally, and
Yeah.
one way or another to look to serving the people. Question: have you heard about the prospective GOP, CA-GOP chairman's race? Are you going to be involved in that or watching that? Have you been plugged into this process? It's kind of
Right. So
exciting. It's
It,
kind of
it is. It's
exciting.
a cool thing. Obviously, like we talked about, our party's in a little bit of a tough situation right now. But I think what we can do is, we can make it exciting. We can make it fun going forward and be effective and efficient and have fun. I am fairly involved with our county party and a couple of the assembly districts that I work with pretty closely. Obviously, everyone has some pretty strong opinions right now due to
Oh,
the
everyone has a strong opinion,
right. We
especially
do
where
have the fresh
politics are concerned.
right, especially with our fresh Republican wounds from November 6th. And, I am aware of a couple people that are going to be running for chairman. I know former Assemblyman David Hadley is going to be running. He announced his candidacy
Mm-hmm.
at the previous LA GOP meeting. I know former gubernatorial candidate Travis Allen is going to be running. And I know there are a few others that are going to be throwing their hat in the ring. And normally I'm the type of person that would say, oh, I know him and I like him previously, so I'm going to jump on the bandwagon and support. But at this point, the way things stand in our party, I am willing to listen to every candidate, and I want to hear all their messages, and I'm going to vote for the man or woman that puts the best foot going forward, and the one that convinces me that our party does have a future in this state, and that we're gonna do some great things going forward.
That's wonderful. For those listeners here who are just joining us, this is Joshua Scott. He is former candidate for, well, actually, he's still kind of a candidate. The vote hasn't been certified
That's
yet.
right. You never know.
December 7th, you never know. That may be the last of the ballots are all Republican.
There you
But
go.
he ran in 2018 for Assembly District, Congressional District 32. We're talking to him right now about the CA-GOP chairman position, which opens up. And for those people who may not be aware, because not everybody is really tied into California politics or maybe even the process, and we talk about this quite frequently, you have to be involved. Now, you and me and just regular people can't make those decisions. We can't go to convention and make those decisions. We have to be involved in our party.
Actually, I am a delegate now that
You
that I
are a
got
delegate,
my
but
nomination, and I was the top performing Republican in Los Angeles County as far as congressional candidates, which is
awesome.
kind of cool. So I have
You're going
some
to be able to
further
vote.
delegates after that. So I will absolutely be very influential in this process, and I can't
Wonderful.
wait to be a part of it. And I'll be sure to keep you posted on my feelings going forward.
Wonderful. Well, what I wanted to tell our viewers, though, is that how this process works. See, Joshua Scott, he is a delegate. And you and me, Joshua Scott may be able to vote, but you and me may not be able to vote or participate in the way that Joshua Scott does. But you know what we can do? We can be involved in our local party. We can network and we can talk to the people who are there who may be delegates and find out more, make influence in certain ways that we can, and connect and be impactful. Because guess what? The people like Joshua Scott go to convention and they hear the speakers, they hear the people address the people who are up for this chairman position, and then they vote. And Joshua Scott, he's your voice if you're in his, I mean, this is a powerful process. It really is. This is how I look at this in terms of how our country was built, Joshua, is that we have representatives of the people, and in our own party, we have representatives, so to speak, and delegates. I mean, I don't know if you call it representative, but it's an important component because a very small amount of people are actually influencing the process for the entire state of California in terms of the Republican Party. And you are one of those people. But the people at home, not everybody understands how that works. So that's why I wanted to just kind of talk about that a little bit, and I'll go into that in another piece after you and I get off of the interview. But this is important. This is important because this will impact a lot of decisions that are made going forward, especially for the CA-GOP, which has struggled.
No, you're absolutely right about that. And I think the most important thing is that those who take power within the party need to be on the same page as the average voter, because something I saw over the last couple of years, and especially this election cycle, is that's not the case right now. The average Republican voter and citizen, they do support President Trump's America First agenda. I believe at the CPAC conference earlier this year, or last year, what was it, like 93% of Republican voters support the America First agenda. But when you look at within the party, I feel like there's kind of a little bit of a threat towards who's going to have the power. People aren't on the same page, and I got kind of a weird vibe with this election.
I think their focus is off. Their focus is politically it's focused on the politics and some of the issues at hand, but mainly the politics and the people involved, as opposed to the people who are actually out there, the people who these individuals have a voice for. Okay,
right,
and that's the problem. There's a disconnect.
Just going back to the struggle within our party. Obviously, like I said, Republican voters, they agree with the president, they agree with the agenda, and they're enthusiastic about it. But I was actually featured in a Washington Post article about a month before the election, and one thing they talked about was the fact that there are over 40 districts here in the USA that did not have a Republican candidate. And think about how many more there would have been if there weren't proud Americans like me who stepped up and said, hey, the people deserve a choice. So we're looking at, there could have been 100 out of 435 districts without a Republican candidate, and that's just absolutely unacceptable. Like right now, we're trying to keep our taxes low. We're trying to secure a border, which now is more important than ever. We're supporting our allies at home and abroad, and this was such an important election, and we did so well in the Senate. And I can tell you exactly why we did so poorly in the House. We just laid it out there right here. And so after I realized that was our situation, the November 6th results were very predictable. And
Well, for me, the Republican Party is not fighting for me.
No.
I'm a Republican. And it feels like and maybe this is a false sense of view, but it feels like the Republican Party isn't fighting for me in California. They're not advocating for me. They're not advocating for everything in their platform that they're saying that they're going to. I mean, I've read all the emails. I read all the gubernatorial candidate emails. I've read the CA-GOP emails. I've read it all. And it just feels like they aren't going to bat. The Democrats, they go to bat. They circle the wagons, and we have to be better about that. And in order to do that, we have to be more unified, have better and stronger communication. And I think that's what you're talking about in terms of the CA-GOP and getting on that same page. Because if we're not, then we're just at ends with our own party and we defeat ourselves. We do the Democrats' work for them.
Yeah, seriously. Going on what you're saying, part of the problem is that we have people that basically, as a California Republican that's trying to win seats in a state like this, blue state, where the Republicans in each district are outnumbered by Democrats and no party preference independent voters, what a lot of campaigns try to do is to put a message out there that kind of placates to winning over Democrats and winning over independents. So they try and say, oh, we need them to win, we need to flip voters, which is true, but they decide to come off with a little bit more of a moderate, placated approach to winning these voters. And that is the absolute opposite of what I did. And I think that's one of the reasons why I had relative success in my district, is because when I would talk to Democrats, I didn't make excuses for our rhetoric, or I didn't, try and say, oh, we're going to be moderate here so we can work with you. I'm going to say, no, you need border security, and we need a legislature that's going to get rid of sanctuary cities so you and your proud Democrat family, your proud independent family can be safe. I want your gas tax to be eliminated. Vote yes on 6. Right. I want you to have further middle-class tax cuts off of your pay off your salary, and I would push our agenda on them and explain to them why it was right and why it was necessary and why it was doing so well. I wouldn't kind of try and find that middle ground to get their vote. And I think that's what the party has to do going forward. We need to get aggressive with our message and an agenda that's working out very well right now, and put it across the opposite message that the media is giving us, where they try and say, oh, they're racist and they're homophobic, they're xenophobic, that's where these laws come from. And we say, no, we believe in this because this.
People before politics.
It works.
Yes, people before politics, principled leadership is definitely needed. And I do believe that's in line with what I was saying, where you're saying that standing by your value system, standing by your policy, standing by your agenda, if you was the word you used. If people can clearly understand why, then they can back you, and going back to what I was saying earlier about wishy-washy and not being represented by the party, or feeling like they're not advocating and fighting for me, that's the same thing. It's like this wishy-washy, middle of the road. People want to know where they stand, and then they can make a decision. Right. And I'm right with you there. So you're relatively young. You ran for office. What else are you up to?
So up until this election, I was campaigning all throughout Southern California. As I mentioned the last time we were together, I was working very closely with Dr. Ken Wright.
Right.
And last year I worked as an analyst in a private intelligence company in Israel. And I think that was the main thing that drove me to get involved with politics. I love America and I love our allies, Israel especially, and we need strong individuals like myself advocating for the right thing these days, because in my opinion, I don't see too many young people advocating for at least what I believe is the right thing, that's for sure. And so that's why I kind of went full throttle all of 2018. And although my ideologies in the region that I live in came up a little unsuccessful, we're just going to keep going. Like I said, I already have some really awesome things in the works for the future, and I can't wait to keep you posted on them, because
absolutely.
Yeah, things are going to be good. It's hard to kind of put a smile on your face right now, but I do have a lot of confidence.
Great. I've got a smile on my face. I don't know about you, but I do. People are really down. They're kind of Republicans do not feel represented by their party in terms of fighting for them and the elections, some of the fraud that we've seen and other things. But it isn't that bad. I mean, what really happened, with the Senate and losing a few seats in the House, prior presidents have seen much, much worse in terms of the loss of the House. I mean, huge. So we won in essence because we held ground. We did take a few little hits, but we held ground in that we didn't do just a complete slaughter like has happened before. And that speaks to me about how President Donald Trump's America First agenda is so relevant to the American people. Because if it wasn't, we would have met all of those lost House seats as prior presidents historically have done for years. And so what, as a young Republican, what do you see that as a testament to for Trump 2020 and the next set of cycle? I mean, you may or may not be running again, but what do you see in terms of the House? Is it going to get worse? Do you think it might get better? How do you see that playing out over the next 2 years? I'm just curious what your viewpoint is.
Between you and me, Erin, I'm still hopeful of running in a special election. I'm still hopeful of running in a special election early in 2019 because of all the voter fraud that they're going to find here at the LA registrar and throughout the nation. Who knows? But in all seriousness, I do believe that the average Republican voter is in favor of the America First agenda, and I think if we campaign the right way and register voters and actually light a fire under ourselves, that we will be very successful in 2020 with the presidential election, House elections, Senate elections, and I think the funny thing is about this election that we had a few weeks ago is that not all of the leverage was used. I know a lot of people expected President Trump to declassify the infamous FISA documents that are just sort of looming over all of us right now.
You know what? I'm proud of him for not. I've seen other presidents use timing and do things and undermine our elections. They say they haven't or they aren't, but they do, and I'm glad he's going about process.
Yeah, absolutely. It was the integrity move, and I respect him for doing it. But I also believe that the public does deserve to know what's been going on in our country over the last few years, and how once these documents are declassified, I truly believe that it's going to be proof that the previous administration and the federal agencies that worked with him were actively working to bring down President Trump's campaign and his presidency after being elected. And I think that's why, I speak with so many of my peers, a lot of them liberal millennials, and they don't understand why the president's constantly railing against our federal agencies like the DOJ, the FBI, and the CIA. They don't really understand, how could there be that much animosity? And it's because it's starting to really look like that before he was elected, they all kind of worked together along with other intelligence agencies with our allies in the UK and Australia. Yeah, exactly. It's a pretty incredible phenomenon that's brewing underneath us right now. Is just you don't really see it talked about in the mainstream media, and it's really wild. Say again.
Why would they talk about it? It doesn't serve their agenda. That goes back to the first, our First Amendment, freedom of the press, where I was telling you about said incumbent who's also a candidate because he's running for re-election, talks on an issue. He's talking as both a candidate and an incumbent, really, and other candidates don't get to voice maybe what they would do, even if the press did it in another way. They aren't. The press is not serving the people. Why in the heck would they do actual investigative journalism to use the powers that as they have to go after the information they need to provide the people with information that they deserve to have? Why would they? It's not in their best interest, not according to the agenda. So that's unfortunate, and I think they're very much complicit in all of this.
Oh, there's absolute complicity in it. And you mentioned investigative journalists that are digging for the right things. The sad part is those people... I don't think
they know how to dig.
Yeah, the thing is, those people do exist. It's just that they're viciously shadow banned. And one of the scary things about it, I'm not sure if you're familiar with her, Laura Loomer. She's an investigative journalist, and she's 25 years old. She's a Jewish conservative, which is exactly what I am. She's out there advocating for the right things and sprinting around and trying to show the public the truth, as I am. And she gets banned from Twitter and Facebook for advocating for the things she believes in. And one of the reasons I got into politics is because I've seen a lot of people with ties to radical Islamic extremism enter our political arena, kind of like Linda Sarsour. That's one of the, I told you in our last interview, that's one of the reasons I got involved here in Southern California, is because she's deeply embedded in the Democrat Party. And then Laura Loomer goes and criticizes Ilhan Omar for having the same radical ties as Linda Sarsour does, and she gets banned from the internet for it. And it's
these
crazy.
Two other individuals can have a megaphone. This is the hypocrisy, and it's all shielded by the liberal left, the progressive liberal left, as being corporate. This is a corporation. It has personhood. Well, you know what? I don't buy it. I can't wait till it goes to the Supreme Court. All of this, because it needs addressed that this is now how we communicate. Social media is a platform. All of these social media platforms are the way that we communicate now. And for them to have people who are involved with terrorist organizations or different kinds of ties and provide influence and say things as extreme as Sarsour has said, suggesting that Americans, jihad, Americans need to be Jews wiped off the planet. Basically, it's disgusting that she would be allowed to continue her megaphone, and yet Laura Loomer, who's merely trying to expose election fraud and expose some other individuals by providing truth, gets shut down. It's horrible. It's wrong, and it needs to be stopped. And I'm not a fan of more regulation, but certainly something needs to be done. Well, we're very proud of you for stepping up and being a loud voice and an influencer, especially here in California. Cool level heads, younger generations getting involved in politics. It's pretty phenomenal, pretty phenomenal. So you taking a break for the holiday season? Is it, you have big plans? What's going on with you?
Like I said, things kind of slowed up a little over Thanksgiving. I'm still in contact with a lot of people within LA County that have the same feelings I do, slightly disgruntled, but also incredibly motivated to kind of work together towards the future. So, I've a lot of little meetings, a lot of contacts. Luckily, the center that I ran my campaign out of in District 32 is still operating 5 days a week. So we go in there all the time. We say, hey, if you want to come meet with us, let's have a meeting. And I think after the first of the year, once all the holidays are over and everyone's kind of back to the grind, you're gonna see some really strong things coming out of my camp, and I really can't wait for it.
Well, I'm excited to hear, and I'm also excited to hear about your activities at the CA GOP convention. I like to remind people we are the GOP. We are the Republican Party. Not everybody may be a delegate like you, but they can get involved in their local county meetings, in their local caucus meetings. They can become delegates as well. They can also be, there's a process to get on your central committees, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, we are the GOP. We need to definitely take a more active role. And you're a prime example of the greatness that's out there today. Thank you so much, Joshua Scott, for coming on the show.
Yeah, I really, really appreciate it. And can I throw one more thing out there I actually just thought of?
You can throw two if you'd like.
No. Okay, awesome. So kind of going back to the examples of election fraud and that things that just kind of make you ask questions. So there was a lot of fuss about the propositions on the ballot this year, how they were written and all that and everything. And I was very, very involved with that. And one thing that I worked very closely with were Propositions 5 and 10. And Proposition 5 and 10 both had implications in the real estate market, rent control and property tax movement among seniors when they move to a new property and whatnot. And it seemed to me that the major lobby behind those propositions, at least on the conservative Republican side, were vote no on 10 and yes on 5, correct? That seemed to be the consensus. And with Proposition 10, it overwhelmingly voted no. I think it was close to 60%, and we got our way with that. But Prop 5 was also overwhelmingly no, and it wound up being no by, I think it was close to 60-40, maybe 53, whatever. So that just kind of makes me ask the question, they were both lobbied the same way, right? So how does one vote so heavily one way, and then the other vote literally by hundreds of thousands of votes the other way? It just none of it really adds up to me.
Marketing? Voter fraud?
It could be, but they were both lobbied the same way.
Well,
so, I don't know. It's just another one of those things that makes you ask questions.
Well, it makes you scratch your chin and wonder why. It's the same thing as Orange County going from from red to blue when the gubernatorial race is clearly still red. And I'm not saying that everybody is a party line voter, okay? But if people are voting for a gubernatorial candidate who's a Republican, this would lend you to believe that that's a very, if it were the other way around, a congressional candidate and they're, red and a blue Democrat, I might go, okay, that kind of makes sense because they're completely two separate leanings. But what happened is I think, a perfect example of your proposition issue right there. It causes you to scratch your head and wonder why, because it doesn't add up.
That's correct.
It doesn't
so it's
add
something
up.
for us to work on and then talk about next time, right?
Yes, absolutely. And it'll be interesting to to see if everybody will sign their names and certify this vote and be willing to stand behind it.
Yep. Well, everyone knows I haven't conceded yet, right? You heard it from me here. I have not conceded.
I never conceded.
That's right. So who knows, right? We'll see what happens over the next couple weeks.
But I'm just saying, it could happen. We just don't know, and we want what's right and what's good. That's all.
That is absolutely right. Absolutely.
So we'll see. Well, thank you so much again, and we'll catch up with you soon. And where can people follow you on social media? I forgot that point.
Right. Follow me on Twitter at Joshua Scott CA-32. I got that blue check mark now, so we're in business. Took a little while, but we got it. Facebook, also Joshua Scott CA-32 or Joshua Scott for Congress. And yeah, just get in contact with me on there and join our movement, because it's only just the beginning.
Yes, absolutely, and that's what we're here for. We really want to unite California on every level. Don't have to agree on everything, but we need to be united.
That's right. I'm with you.
The will of the people. All right. God bless you, Joshua Scott.
God bless you, Erin. Have a great holiday season, all right?
You as well.
To hear more and to learn more on how you can make an impact or about the Erin Cruz Show, visit us online at erincruz.com. That's ERINCRUZ.com.